Right, what is going on, my friends? We are doing a video that I got the idea from Max, so shout out to Max. We're going to do a gym bag tier list, just kind of general items one might have in their tier list, ranking them anywhere from S tier to D tier. Things we're going to factor in, probably price, like how worthwhile I think they are, how much different utility they offer, generally just how much I would recommend prioritizing them. That's not to say that there aren't things that are going to be lower on this that are perfectly reasonable to have in your gym bag. I'm just going to use this as an opportunity to kind of give some of my thoughts on some of these items. So we're going to get right after it. We're just going to go through them in order to take away any of my baseless speculation. The first one we have here is instant coffee. Basically, I just include this because I wanted to kind of include the 3 or 4 main ways someone might source their pre-workout caffeine. Generally speaking, when we're talking about pre-workout in general, caffeine is going to be the most efficacious ingredient. It's going to be the thing that most people are looking for. Some people like non-stim pre-workouts, whether those be more focus-based or more pump-based, both of which are super valid. But generally speaking, when people are reaching for some kind of pre-workout supplement, they are looking for some additional energy. So we're going to get the caveat out of the way right off the bat. These are not for everyone. Ingesting caffeine before you train has to be a kind of something that you assess on a plus minus basis. So plus, often people will find they get better workouts. Some people might find that they get jittery, they have a hard time focusing. So it's not even a plus to the workout quality. But if you're someone who works out late at night, the detriment that having caffeine late in the day might have to your sleep might make it a net negative. So you need to weigh that cost benefit analysis out to know whether caffeine pre-workout is something that is a good move for you. That being said, we've got a couple ways on this list to where we could source aforementioned caffeine. I would say that if you like coffee, it's going to be quite cheap on a milligram to milligram basis of the actual caffeine itself, if we're sourcing it just from some cheap instant Folgers like this. So it's very cost efficient. It does get the job done of getting caffeine into your system if it's something that you might be doing otherwise. I think it's a reasonably good option, especially because of how affordable it is. So I'm going to say that's A tier. If you are someone who has found that, okay, well, I find that for me, coffee is a net positive, right? Or caffeine in general is a net positive. I like coffee. This is a very cheap and sustainable way to source it where you know exactly what you're ingesting. Next one we're looking at, easy S tier. Headphones are a phenomenal tool. They're not for everybody. I know tons of guys don't like working out while listening to music, which I think is perfectly respectable. I just find that they're a very useful tool for people who want to get hyped up before a lift. They want to get their adrenaline going. Headphones offer a good tool to do that. You can turn up the volume in the headphone, which is going to get some kind of adrenaline response going. It can help you focus in a busy gym environment. If you have a rigorous workout that you want to get done, you can kind of almost operate in your own world with headphones on. I know these are both really obvious starting ones, but the next one we're going to take a look at is actually liquid chalk. I'm going to place this and then I'm going to give you my reason why. Absolute top of S tier. I have had liquid chalk in my gym bag since right around when I started lifting. I find for me and for many people, liquid chalk does as good, if not better, of a job than regular chalk because it contains alcohol. That's why it dries out on your hands. Once you spread it all over your hands, the alcohol evaporates. That's why it dries. That also can dry sweat off of your hands. So if you're having a really tough workout, it's the summer months, and you're sweating a ton, this can be a great way to dry off your hands. It leaves no residue on the bar. So in gyms where you might not be allowed to use regular chalk or they don't provide regular chalk, this can be a really easy workaround. I used to be a little bit discreet with it because I don't think the people at the YMCA even want to be using liquid chalk, but because it leaves no residue, I knew that no one would actually complain about what was happening. So I'd just keep my hands closed between my sets. I would leave no residue on the bar, no harm, no foul. The reason I rank this so high is I find that hand drying effect, I really would take, if I had to pick between regular chalk and liquid chalk, I would pick liquid chalk. It's easy to transport. It doesn't make a mess as long as it doesn't pop open. You're allowed to use it at the vast majority of gyms as long as you're not making a huge show about it. And I would say that the other reason is most gyms where you would be allowed to bring your own chalk in your bag oftentimes are going to provide that chalk for you. So I think that there's a big like most gyms to where you could just be perfectly socially acceptable, breaking out a brick of chalk out of your bag, rubbing it on your hands, getting it on the bar. Almost every single gym that would be chill with you doing that also has their own chalk. So I don't think that is that necessary in the gym bag. Whereas this is a great option for anytime you're at a gym that doesn't provide chalk or allow for chalk. That being said, bringing your own chalk works pretty well. You just have to deal with the fact that that might not be smiled upon in many gym environments. So I would say it's outperformed by the liquid chalk, but I don't know. I'm going to go top of A tier just because I do think it's a bit of a hassle, and the liquid chalk is just a better option for the vast majority of people. Now, the next one we're going to look at, this is caffeine pills. You could buy them for pretty goddamn cheap off of Amazon. They're a single ingredient. It is just caffeine. It is as cost effective as you are going to get. If you are someone who makes that cost benefit analysis, you say, okay, I find that caffeine pre-workout, at least on these training days, maybe my upper body days are a little bit less intense, so I don't have caffeine on those days, or these days I train late, I don't have caffeine, but sometimes caffeine is a net positive to my workout. How am I going to source that? Well, the nice part about caffeine pills is we know exactly what we're getting, and it is only that, and we are paying the minimum we can for it. So either the Nutri-Cost ones or the bulk supplement ones are the ones I generally buy. I am always trying to be cost conscious, and I would say that these are my favorite, right? I think that they upset the stomach slightly less than something like instant coffee would as well, although caffeine is always going to have a bit of an effect on your stomach, affecting some people more than others. But I would absolutely toss the caffeine pills up into the S tier. It's just a very simple way of like, okay, I've run this yes-no equation of caffeine is good on this workout. Yes, no. What is the cheapest way I can do that sustainably? So I'm not really breaking the budget to just gain this small benefit. Caffeine pills are my go-to for that. I think that you don't want to be too excessive with them. But the other part that's nice about caffeine pills compared to other options is you know exactly what the stimulant load is, right? Sometimes with energy drinks or sometimes with pre-workouts, you could have secondary ingredients that are having a stimulatory effect that are not included in the caffeine total, right? Because they're other things other than caffeine. So we can kind of have a better idea of what it is exactly we're doing with these single ingredient pills as well, which I think is pretty cool. The next one we're going to take a look at is some standard lifting straps. These are the standard lasso style straps. There's a couple different kinds of straps you could get. Generally speaking, I think that Versa grips are a good option for people who are doing more bodybuilding. I don't really like the Versa grips for deadlifts because they'll pop open every now and then, and missing a deadlift because your strap popped open is unbelievably frustrating, but they're really quick to set on the bar. So for back hypertrophy work, Versa grips are cool. These lasso style straps, the old school kind, do the job damn well. They do every job. You can use them for deadlifts. You can use them for back work. They take a second to tie to the bar, but the longer you use them, the better you get at it. And that time becomes pretty negligible once you get used to them. These are my general recommendation for most people, is just to get some regular lasso style ones. I like the blue Iron Mind ones because they are like nylon, so they basically never wear out. The only issue is they are a little bit slippery, so you might have to chalk them a little bit, but they are durable as all hell. Also, you have the figure eight style strap, which I don't think is any better for back work than any other kind of strap. And the main reason people use them is that it lets them artificially inflate their deadlifts by holding the weight crazy low in their hands. If you're a strongman competitor and you're allowed to use your figure eights, yeah, go buy some figure eights. For sure, take advantage of what you can do within the rules. If you're just doing it to inflate your gym lifts, I guess respect to you. Please acknowledge that maybe. But as far as like bang for your buck, you can use them for a whole bunch of things. I do like the regular lasso ones. Also, you can buy smaller figure eights, which actually keeps you more honest than even regular straps because it holds the bar relatively high in your palm, which those are awesome because they're going to keep you really accountable for not artificially improving your leverages with the straps. But overall, we can make grip not a limiting factor on our back work, which is an amazing tool to have. We can use them to do an alternate grip on front squats, which is awesome. We can use them for our deadlift training. They are damn cheap. I think that these are something that everybody should at least have in their gym bag, even if it's just a cheap pair. Let's say you do all your deadlifting bare hand. That's kind of your cup of tea, is barehanding your deadlifts, because you can't pick it up if you can't pick it up with straps, without your straps, right? More respect to you. If you had bad luck one day, one of your calluses tore off, I think that having a pair of straps to finish up your pulling is a good option. It's probably something you should have in your gym bag. Now, the next one we're going to look at, Real Sleeper Pick, and this is the brand that I buy of salt pills. I believe they contain about 500 milligrams of sodium. They've got 1 gram of sodium chloride. I think half of the molecular weight of that is the chloride itself, meaning we got about 500 grams of or milligrams of sodium. This can be a great tool for people who train early in the day. We wake up in a dehydrated state. We want to make sure we hydrate the best we can before we go to the gym. Part of hydration is intaking water, but also part of hydration is intaking a proportional amount of electrolytes. Sodium pill can help with that. People who have issues with cramping, sodium pill can help with that. People who kind of gas halfway through their workouts, they tend to sweat a lot. A sodium pill can help with that. And I think it's just an awesome tool to have at your disposal. Maybe you find that having it with your pre-workout before your bench days, you feel a little stronger because your hydration status is a little better. Obviously, we can get plenty of sodium just from salting our real food, but I do find that these are cheap, and it's something that's nice to have on hand. I would say they're a very good tool to have in the toolbox. I think that we could comfortably toss these mid-A tier. Yeah, I would say mid-A tier. I would say they're a very good tool you can have at your disposal for when you're having an issue, whether that be a rushed preparation to train, whether that be a bit of cramping, whether that be, I've got a long-ass training session today, I need to keep myself sustained. Now, the next one we're going to look at is actually whey. I meant to kind of put this in here as a placeholder for having a post-workout shake. So, going to go back in history, a long time ago, back when people were very aggressive about the existence and the importance of the anabolic window. This was kind of predatorily used by supplement companies to say that, whey is a rapidly digesting protein. If you don't down a whey shake right after you finish training, you're wasted the workout. You're getting no gains, right? Which we now know is not true and was never true. That being said, I do think it is a reasonably good habit to toss down a fast-digesting protein shake after you train, especially if you know, I've got to drive home, or it's going to be a little bit before I eat that post-workout meal. I think it's a good habit. It's a good window to fit in some protein. If you're someone who's struggling to gain weight or struggling to hit your protein macros, throwing a quick protein shake to knock back after you work out, while it's not necessary and it's not magic, is a perfectly useful tool to have at your disposal, especially for people who are struggling to gain weight. They can fit calories into that intra-workout window, into that post-workout window, and help them hit their protein macros. So I think as long as it doesn't upset your stomach, it's a habit that you can establish in your routine that will probably benefit you. It's not just make or break. You can get tremendously strong without any supplements at all, but I do think that it warrants maybe a bottom of A tier because it does work. Now, the next one we're going to look at is micro plates. These are 2.5 pound plates, I think. If your gym doesn't have 2.5 pound plates, and we're talking about just keeping a pair of 2.5s in your bag, I think that there's plenty of ways to program in which we could work around the absence of these, but I think that they offer a ton of utility if you have them. I don't necessarily know if I would ever recommend someone to buy 1.25 pound plates. I've had a couple of the smaller female clients I've worked with buy them, and I think that that has served a purpose well. But for the most part, especially if you are a dude, I think that you'll be able to get to a level of strength relatively quickly where that is such a small percentage jump that it's kind of arbitrary. I think you should be able to attain that level of strength without that much effort on average. That being said, if your gym doesn't have 2.5s, I would get a pair of 2.5s. It's pretty affordable. I think because of how easy it is to program around it, and the fact that people tend to misuse microplates to where they'll just be obsessed with like, okay, I'm just going to put like 1 pound more on the bar than I did last time, when really they're kind of missing the forest for the trees and realizing that, okay, no, it's not about this extremely finite progressive overload. It's more about coming into the training, putting in work that's in the appropriate threshold of difficulty with time, and you'll get stronger as a byproduct of hanging out within that appropriate volume and difficulty threshold. If we then go home, we eat, we sleep. The fact that we exposed ourselves to the threshold is what's going to drive us forward. It's not this math equation of I need to have 1.25 more pounds on the bar than I did last week. So I think a lot of the time they will be misapplied. But if your gym doesn't have 2.5s, I would order yourself a pair off of Amazon, bottom of A tier. Now, the next one we're going to take a look at is you got these Rice Krispie treats. This is intra-workout snacks, so solid foods that are relatively uninvasive on the stomach. Some people, this is not the move. They feel terrible. They feel like they're digesting while they're training if they eat any solid food, in which case, if you feel like it's negatively impacting your training, it's probably not the move. If you're someone who's got long training sessions, be it powerlifting or strongman training, fitting in some extra calories during that window to sustain your energy levels can be good. I like Rice Krispie treats, and I like fruit, and I like dried fruit. Those are kind of my go-to couple of options. Lots of people like candy. I prefer dried fruit myself, but I would say it's got a time and a place, especially if you're someone who trains for a long time and is also someone who's been struggling to put on weight. That's a pretty big window that you're going without ingesting any calories. So having a small amount of calories during your training can just be another window to fit in some extra calories to your day. That being said, I think the vast majority of people don't train long enough to need it. I think the vast majority of people don't struggle so much with putting on weight that they need to fit in calories to that intra window. I would say for those for whom it's relevant, it's awesome. I just think that's not the majority of people. I'll eat a full meal in the middle of my training sometimes, but it also doesn't bug me at all. So we'll go B tier just because I find that for some people it's a real game changer, but for the vast majority of people it is not the move. The next one we're looking at is a grip shirt. When these came out, the A7 grip shirts, I think that people thought they were like the greatest revolutionary thing of all time. I'm trying to give like a good, reasonable, balanced breakdown of these. If we are talking about for strongman, awesome. If you're allowed to use it in competition, it is just improving your chances, whether that be for a stone steel, whether that be for a log, whether that be for an axle. You should have one if you're a strongman, but we're going to talk about these ones that people generally use for squatting and bench pressing. I think the use on bench pressing, okay, the bench is a little slick. You could buy this A7 shirt and stick to the bench a little bit better, maintain your positioning through a rep set a little bit better. Cool. You could do that same task by putting a band on the bench down here, just running a band in an X pattern across the bench. You could make the bench itself grippy. That's substantially cheaper than the A7 shirt, and I find that it works about as well. So as far as for bench, I'm not really sold on it because we're going to get to it in a second, but I do think you should have a couple of resistance bands in your gym bag. I think that those are going to go into the S tier to kind of spoil that a little bit. For squats, lots of people squat high bar, in which case it's completely irrelevant. If you squat with a bar with any meaningful knurling at all and you can't keep it in a low bar position without a grip shirt, you are kind of abusing that grip shirt to use a technique you probably shouldn't be using. If you train at a gym with bars without center knurling or extremely poor knurling and you want a low bar squat, this could be an option. I could see this working if you are in that very specific circumstance, but I think overall they are quite overrated. I think that a lot of the reason they took off so much is because it's a cool idea. It's a super fucking cool idea. I don't know. I still like the idea. I just find in practical application, most people do not need them. The next one is smelling salts. This is really hit or miss. It's like we talked about with the caffeine part, where we need to run a cost-benefit analysis. If you are someone who performs best lower on the arousal curve, right? So with a little bit less adrenaline, you do your best lifting. This probably has no place in your gym bag, right? Because you don't need to reach a very high level of arousal to do your best lifting. You find that, if I get too hyped up, my cues go right out the window. and it's just it goes bad, right? So I usually lift at a pretty low level of hype, in which case this holds no value for you. If you identify yourself as someone higher on the arousal curve, this can be an external tool to let you get the adrenaline going, although I think some people use it as a crutch, because we should probably be able to develop that skill of getting our adrenaline firing without any external stimulation. If we're a high arousal lifter, we know that adrenaline does us some good on our lifts. It also makes sense that we should have that skill mastered. That being said, there's some days where you're fatigued, you can't get the adrenaline going. Smelling salts will step in to save the day. But I do think that the number of people that are high enough on the arousal curve to where use of smelling salts is going to be helpful isn't the majority. So we're going to go B tier. Kind of the same argument as the intra-workout snack option of, for those whom it's good, it's quite good. It's just pretty hit or miss, so I can't put it up in the A, S tier where I'm kind of recommending it to the vast majority of people. The next one we're going to look at is a bench block. You can buy one that offers you a 1 board and a half board. You can also buy one that offers you a 2, 3, and 4 board. It's basically just something you can snap onto the bar to do board presses. I think this is an amazing invention because having to get someone to hold a board for you is a big pain. Most gyms don't have boards. Putting something under your shirt, like I did in college, I just used the textbooks from the classes I was taking at the time, put them under my shirt, did some bench pressing. Bit of a pain, looks a bit goofy, fits in your gym bag. It's not too cumbersome. Really, really good at serving the purpose that it does. But the question is, how many people really need to or should be doing board presses? And I think that's kind of the crux of this. Does this replace boards really well? Yes, I absolutely love the bench block. I have one. I use it. That being said, the usefulness of it is predicated on, well, how useful is a board press? And I think that the vast majority of people should probably be doing more benching through a full range of motion to kind of holistically develop their strength before they worry about doing top-end partials. I don't think that board presses are really that necessary of a part of most people's bench press development until they get reasonably strong. So I don't think this is something that really needs to be in your gym bag. I think that, again, we're going to toss this dead in the middle of the B tier because we have that same kind of conundrum we're running into where it's like, okay, let's say you are someone who has found, hey, a 2 board or a 1 board. I wouldn't really go past that for raw lifting. I don't think anything higher than a 2 board is a great idea. But let's say a 2 board correlates with your upper end benching strength. You find this to be a valuable accessory. You're not just inflating your ego by benching 110% to a 2 board. Let's say you are in that category. Buy one. It's awesome. Keep it in your gym bag. Lets you do them anywhere, anytime, even without a training partner. That being said, because so few people, I think, necessarily should be doing the board presses, we can't put it up into these upper tiers. Now, the next one we're going to look at, this is warming balm. Warming balm is very popular among people who have been lifting a long time. It's just something you rub on the surface of your skin, and it makes it quite warm. Pretty varying in the different brands. I used to buy Atomic Balm, which was pretty goddamn warm. This one, I don't see what the brand is, but you can look at that. It's on Amazon. It's pretty cheap. This is solid. I like this stuff. I will rub it on my knees to just help me get warm a little faster. Honestly, that's one of the biggest benefits is if I'm working out in the winter. I live in Montana, so it gets quite cold. This can help me warm up an area that doesn't feel like it's getting warm very quick. If I've got little aches and pains, putting some warming balm on it can help a little bit. But the biggest thing is speeding up the process of warming up. I know back in the day, lots of Russian lifters loved their warming balm. I don't think it's any coincidence that it gets quite cold in most of Russia, as it does here. So that being said, I think that this is a workaround, right? If we have these constant aches and pains and we need to be lathering ourselves in warming balm, usually that's masking a programming issue. We should be able to get rid of all of that discomfort via better programming, better nutrition, better sleep, better load management. And a lot of time when we have all these little band-aids like compression cuffs and warming balms, it'll almost be like, okay, well, this is my solution. When that shouldn't be the solution, that should be a temporary workaround. There's going to be times when you're fatigued and you got to push through it. If you're in a meet prep, you're prepping for a strongman contest, there's going to be portions where you can't just dial back, reset, and adjust your loading. And things like this warming balm, things like compression cuffs, things like, I don't know, voodoo flossing, things like, we're going to get to it in a little bit, but a lacrosse ball. These things, they're not useless by any means, but we can kind of use them as a crutch for not fixing things we need to. But if push comes to shove, we're late in the meet prep, we got to make it through in one piece. This can help you make it through. So I would say, like, we're going to throw a bunch of things. It looks, unless I'm missing it, like I didn't get the lacrosse ball image loaded in. So we're just going to put this in the B tier. They hold a lot of value, but we're going to say this kind of encompasses a bunch of like discomfort workarounds. So let's say this includes a foam roller. Let's say this includes a lacrosse ball. Let's say this includes a compression cuff. Let's say this warming balm that I love is included, right? And maybe let's even throw some like Advil or some ibuprofen into this category as well, because that's actually something tons of good strength athletes I know have in their gym bag that I should have included in this list is like ibuprofen. Should you be using it regularly? No, it's masking really poor programming variables. But is there a time in a meet prep? Yes. So non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, NSAIDs, do suppress the hypertrophic response to training. So we shouldn't be using them regularly or they're going to kill our gains, right? So we shouldn't be using them in a hypertrophy phase. We probably shouldn't even be using them in a strength phase. But again, if we're peaking out for a meet and push comes to shove, we got to have about this much weight on the bar by this point in time or we're not going to be ready. All of these things can be good workarounds. We just don't want them to be our primary intervention. Throwing them in the B tier like I do with anything else, that's kind of, it's got a time and a place. I don't necessarily think I like would recommend it across the board. Next one, lifting belts. Pretty self-explanatory. Pretty comfortable S tier. I would rather have liquid chalk than a belt personally, because if I was just going to a gym, I had no equipment, and they didn't have chalk, it'd be tough to get in some good deadlifting volume without something to help me get a little bit better grasp on the bar. I could do good beltless volume with some liquid chalk. I couldn't necessarily do good deadlift volume with my belt on without the liquid chalk to be able to hold on to a slippery bar. So I'd say liquid chalk reigns supreme. But a belt, I really don't need to explain that. I honestly think I would feel pretty comfortable putting the headphones up there as far as my essentials too. If I was just on vacation with my family, I could go get a great workout just in my Jordans. No fancy shoes, no fancy equipment, just put on my headphones. I could get in a pretty good strength training workout, just scale my numbers slightly. Now the next one we're looking at, this is a gym pin. It is a little thing that you can put into the weight stack that acts as a peg to load additional weight on top of the stack. Your gym might not allow this, and rightfully so, because the cabling was designed for the amount of weight on the stack. Some more hardcore gyms are totally good with this. They're used to having to replace the cables all the time, although it's something that I would probably run by your gym staff. If the gym staff is cool with it and you are wicked strong, it's awesome. It lets you go heavier on some machines that have probably poorly selected maximum weights. That being said, most people don't need this. It's a novelty item. It serves its purpose well. We're going to go bottom of B tier, and I'm also going to give you guys a little pro tip. I do this. I don't have a gym pin. I literally have a 8-inch bolt. I think it's 3/8 of an inch in diameter. It's about 8 inches long. I literally just went when I was going to buy some more dirt for my yard. I walked over and I bought it while I was at Home Depot. And it's just a bolt, and it does the exact same thing. So little pro tip there. Next one is pre-workout. Now, this one is interesting, right? Because it is going to spoil it a little bit. Oh my God, the image didn't load in. This is brutal. So the other one I was going to have in here for the pre-workout category was an energy drink, right? Energy drink are usually kind of similar in ingredients to pre-workout, but they are significantly more expensive. I would put energy drinks in the C tier. There's nothing wrong with liking them. It's going to be a fun ritual, but all of us probably shouldn't be spending too much money on energy drinks when the exact same ingredients could be gotten for cheaper per serving in pre-workout. So if you like the things other than the caffeine, right? So let's say you're looking for, well, I want the caffeine, but I also want some pump ingredients, or I want some of these other focus ingredients, or whatever the hell it is. I like that. I like that effect it has on me. It doesn't seem to be a net negative. You also want more than caffeine, so coffee isn't going to get it done, or you don't like coffee. You'd say, okay, well, I've got two options of things that contain all these other ingredients. I have energy drinks, which are quite expensive, and I've got pre-workout, which is still kind of expensive compared to our other two options, but cheaper on a serving to serving basis than our energy drink is. So I would definitely feel comfortable putting these like bottom of B tier. It's not really my cup of tea, but if you like the pump ingredients, go for it. And I would definitely recommend that over the energy drink. If we had an energy drink, imagine I'm dragging and dropping that maybe bottom of C tier. I kind of like, it's not lost on me the cool kind of ritual of running to the gas station on your way to the gym, drinking it outside the gym and going in. There's a cool ritual there that's a lot of fun. I just think that we all end up spending more money than we should on energy drinks. So that is what it is. You also have more options in terms of variants and ingredients. Basically, every energy drink has the same ingredients, plus or minus about 150 milligrams of caffeine, anywhere ranging from like about 140. I guess Red Bull's down at like 80, 90. So anywhere from like 80 to 90 milligrams of caffeine, all the way out to about 300 in something like a Reign. But aside from that, the other ingredients are pretty universal across energy drinks, whereas we can pick the other ingredients present in our pre-workout to a greater degree. Some have a ton of like adequately dosed pump products, which will make a difference. Some are more stim heavy, some are more focus heavy. So you got a little bit more customization you can do there, which is cool. Athletic tape. I would probably just recommend you throw some in your bag. You're probably going to tear a callus at some point or something. Just having some is good. You might go 6 months, a year before you actually use it, but you're going to be glad you just had it in the bottom of your gym bag. It's dirt cheap. You buy it like Rite Aid, Walgreens, grocery stores. They sell it everywhere. Super cheap. I would literally just grab one while you're walking by, throw it in the bottom of your gym bag. I've been at the gym many times and someone cut their hand or someone their hook grip was going, and it's like, oh, does anybody have athletic tape? I'm like, I do. Why does no one else have this? So I would say that because it's so cheap, this is something I would throw in my bag. I'm kind of liking this S tier of stuff that like I feel pretty comfortable. Like, yeah, I would definitely recommend that most people kind of have these things handy. The next thing we're looking at is elbow sleeves. Controversially, I think I'm going to put these in the middle of B tier. I wear them, and I wear them mostly because I think they look cool. And if you wear them because you think they look cool, more power to you. Welcome to my club. But I think that generally speaking, we should manage our elbow health with good load selection and build up in our exercise variations to where we shouldn't need an elbow sleeve to have our knees feel healthy. I think it's not the most difficult thing in the world to keep the elbow joint relatively healthy if we progress our exercises well with time. So I don't think we need the sleeve to keep our elbow warm. Let's say you're a competitive strength athlete and you're trying to get weight out of them for strongman. Okay, fine, that's fair. But overall, I don't think they're a necessity by any means. I feel very, very fine pressing without mine. I just like how they look. And also, if you wear the Larry Wheels style elbow wraps, the only reason you are using those is to artificially inflate your bench numbers for people that don't know how much weight you can get out of those. A little bit annoying. You're like, oh, my elbows hurt if I don't wear them. Yeah, because you're benching 50 pounds more than what you should be doing. Little pet peeve. I digress. Now, here's a little cool one. These little deadlift wedges. Yes, I know you can just roll your deadlift up onto a 2.5 and it serves the same purpose, but they're pretty cheap. If you train in a gym that doesn't have deadlift jacks, this is a little novelty item that I actually think is worth its salt. I think I could put these pretty comfortably in the bottom of A tier. I think that it's a good little knick-knack to have. Loading deadlifts, unloading deadlifts is a massive pain if you've done a rigorous deadlift workout. This one was more of a novelty item suggested by Kirsten. Phone charger, number one. Have your phone charger with you. The next one we're looking at, baby powder. The reason people use baby powder, they put it on their thighs to decrease the friction on a deadlift. Sometimes a deadlift can get stuck up on your thighs. Just putting some baby powder on your thighs can kind of smooth that lockout out. You got to be careful not to get it on your hands or it's going to throw off your grip. That being said, unless you go to like more of a strength specific gym, it's probably going to be frowned upon. It's not going to make that big of a difference. One of those items that like It's good to have if we're trying to optimize everything, but really not a must need at all. So we're just gonna go mid B tier. It's a good item to have. It just so many gyms aren't going to smile upon that, and also it really doesn't make that big of a difference. Now the next one we got here is fat grips. Fat grips are a solid training tool. I don't know if I can rank them that high. I think the idea is super cool, much like the A7 shirt. I think that they are more useful than the A7 shirt, so they must be at least top of C tier. I think that they are a wonderful tool for building in some extra grip work to your program. Usually my principles for grip work is to try to have something where your grip is the limiting factor on every single day of training, including fat grips on some exercises. The easiest way to do this. So in that regard, they're very helpful as a grip development tool. They're pretty good as a forearm development tool. I would say that they offer a lot of benefits, but most people could get their grip plenty strong without any fat grips present. I would say that they're kind of akin to the bench block. They do what they're meant to do really, really well. That being said, what they're meant to do isn't necessarily all that important, but if we identify that need within our training, it's probably worth the money. Now, a big water bottle, top of S tier, up with the phone charger, essential. If you're just drinking out of a water fountain, you're not going to drink enough water. You should probably track your water intake to make sure it's relatively standard from day to day. All around, pretty good idea. Don't think I need to explain the importance of water to you guys. And then this one, we kind of have our two novelty obvious ones at the top of the S tier. We're going to leave those alone. But as far as like practical things, I would probably put this right here, up in the S tier, resistance bands. These are so like crazy versatile that I do recommend that at some point everybody buys at least like a light one or two of them. They offer you so many options for mobility. They offer you exercise options that you can do with the band. If you have a little heavier ones, they let you alter the resistance curve of machines or free weights. They offer you a way to make the bench less slippery. They let you warm up even if all the equipment is taken. Like there's so many things we can do with these that I will use every day. I open my gym bag and I use my band for some kind of mobility most days, for some kind of like light warm up exercise. And I also throw it on the bench every single time. And then sometimes I will alter the resistance curve on a machine. Maybe I want to make the leg press heavier at the top. So many options with these. They're relatively affordable. It's like there's a reason that when everybody rolls up to a strongman contest or a powerlifting meet, lots of guys whip a light band out of their bag to start warming up. It's something that you can have contained in your gym bag that offers you ways to get a light pump to all of the relevant muscles. Super good option. Cannot rate these highly enough. Now, the next one we're going to look at is knee sleeves, actually. Let's see. I would say that these outperform elbow sleeves because keeping the knees feeling good is a little bit more difficult for most people than keeping the elbows feeling good. I think that just keeping that warmth around the knee joint allows people to get into working sets on squatting a lot quicker than they could otherwise. They're not an absolute necessity, but I do think that these are a purchase that I would have most people make if they do have the funds. Lots of it is just cutting down on the time to get warm. I think that you could I don't think you really need to get tight ones to increase your squat because if the goal is the training, not the specific numbers, whether you add that plus 20 or you don't add that plus 20 from a tight pair of sleeves, what matters is the rate of progression, but having some nice sleeves to keep your knees warm. Honestly, I'd probably put up in the S tier just because so many people struggle with keeping their knees warm and functioning. Now, the other one that I am shocked how many things didn't load into this list. This is absolutely devastating. I think I'll probably pause this and edit them together once I add the remaining ones. But we're going to put these last 5 items on there, and then we're going to go grab whatever the hell I missed. So the next one, a funny suggestion from the comments, a shoehorn. I think that is very funny. If you're a super heavyweight and you're struggling to put your shoes on, this is absolutely an S tier item that I've never thought of. I will probably go buy one. For the vast majority of people, I think if you can't get your shoe on without damaging your shoe, you probably got to go on some blood pressure meds. But I like the idea. We're going to say it beats the A7 shirt. Next one, some heeled shoes. Now this one's kind of interesting. I think a lot of people overstate the importance of a heeled shoe just for general training. I think that the standard of trying to be able to effectively train legs without them is a reasonable mobility standard to hold yourself to, so I don't think you need them. I think that people think that they're going to be this panacea that fixes everything that's wrong with their squat, when in reality that's not the case at all. You have those same core issues that were the reason you couldn't squat in flats. They're just going to manifest a little differently in heels. That being said, for some people, depending on your training goals, they let you kind of change the angle, change that emphasis towards the quads. We can kind of throw them on a leg press and they effectively change the angle of the sled. We can bias the motion towards the quads a little bit. Awesome. Same thing on like a hack squat. I would say that these go top of A tier. They're not for everybody. Their use is a little overstated, but that's not to mean that their use is not pretty large. Deadlift Socks, top of B tier. I guess there's things that are probably better than this in the B tier. We'll put them right here. They're a good option. I think lots of people complain all the time about deadlifts cutting up their shins when all you need is some long socks. You don't need to pay extra money for something that's called quote unquote deadlift socks. You can just buy a pair of longer socks, whether they be for like basketball or soccer. You can buy them in bulk for cheap. Keep them in your gym bag. Throw them on for deadlift days. Honestly, it's pretty nice. It costs very little. I honestly recommend it. That being said, you could also do what I do and wear your knee sleeves over your shins, although that might decrease the lifespan of your knee sleeves a little bit. Now, the next one, this could be Gatorade. This could be any other intra-workout supplement, whether that be dextrose powder, whether that be a comprehensive intra-workout like powder drink, whether that be highly branched cyclic dextrin, but I usually just recommend Gatorade because it is affordable. Same thing if you're someone who's really struggling to gain weight, fitting some calories into that training window is extremely helpful. Gatorade being a affordable and easily palatable and less likely way to upset your stomach. So I would say that in a lot of ways, this Gatorade is going to go bottom of A tier because it outperforms the intra-workout snack. Most people could even on a leg day down a Gatorade and it's not going to upset their stomach. Lets you kind of fuel your training. And lets you fit some calories into a window that otherwise would normally be devoid of calories. Lots of people find that having a fast digesting calorie, like the dextrose within Gatorade, helps them kind of crank through a different, keeps them working hard through the last kind of quarter of a difficult workout where they might often gas out. All right, I'm going to go get my other ones in a second. Last one we're placing is a neoprene soft belt. Some people like wearing a neoprene soft belt because it helps them feel and work on their bracing. I don't think that's the case for everyone, so I can't really make some blanket recommendation for that. You'll see lots of strongmen will use these under their belts just to provide as much support to their midsection as they can. But for the average gym goer, I would say it can have a time and a place. I'd say the biggest benefit it offers for your average person would be that it keeps your low back physically warm, which does feel quite nice. That being said, we'll go top of C tier. Really just for Gen Pop training or for general strength. Not Gen Pop. If you're watching this video, you are not Gen Pop. For general strength training, I really just don't see this being something that most people would need to invest their money in. So we're going to cut away from a second. We're going to come back in a second. We're going to find out what the hell I forgot. Okay, we are back. We've got the rest of them. Let's see here. We're going to go energy drinks, as we discussed earlier, would be my lowest tier of the caffeine sources. We're just going to toss them in C tier because they are expensive. We have less customization in other ingredients as we do in the C4, and we have much worse cost efficiency than we have in all of the above options. As well as if we're just using it for caffeine, there's a bunch of other shit that you need to factor in there. Next thing we're going to look at is a massage gun. This kind of falls into the same category as the warming balm of something that maybe could help you work through something, but should not be your primary intervention. And the problem is if one of your go-to tools is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So if you love your massage gun, you're going to think about massaging gunning the issue away rather than spending that same time thinking about what programming adjustments we're going to need to make. So I know I kind of use the warming balm as a proxy for these other options, but I'm not a huge fan of the massage gun. It feels nice. I'm not going to say that if your rationale is just that it feels nice, more power to you. It's just not something I consider a staple of my physical development regimen. A slingshot. Speaking of things, back in that A7 shirt era that everybody thought was the next coming of Jesus, when everybody was convinced you needed to touch 115% to hit a new PR, and exposing your CNS to heavy weights was the move, and feeling what it felt like, this was going to be the greatest thing ever. Lo and behold, a couple years later, very few high-level benchers are using this on an extremely regular basis in their training, because I think people have realized the need for super maximal preparation is pretty limited. It can be a good training tool. It does the task okay, but I don't think I would hold the slingshot in as high of regards as I do something like the bench block. Not really my cup of tea. I guess following my own rationale, if you identify the slingshot as something that correlates well with your bench strength, I guess I got to put it in B. That being said, I think it's just like how people convince themselves that they don't respond to volume because they don't like doing volume. I think a lot of people like convincing themselves that they respond really well to super maximal lifts because they like having the ego boost of having more plates on the bar. Maybe that needs to be re-examined. Next one we're going to look at, the logbook. Just knowing what you did last week on your accessories. This could be a note in your phone. This could be a physical logbook. Either works. I find there's something very cathartic about writing down that you did one more rep than last week. I find that that's just kind of a part of my mental process of physically training my body. I'm a real sucker for the actual pen and paper. To me, this accountability system for effort, this frame of reference for what we've done for prior weeks, absolutely merits its way up here. I guess if I had to pick, I would still rather have my liquid chalk. But if I have my liquid chalk, the next thing I'd pick is my logbook, so I know kind of what my frame of reference is for what is a successful workout. Now, the next one we're going to look at, I don't want to draw this out too much. It'll just get a little bit repetitive, and I've got other videos talking about this. I can make more in the future. It's not going to be a big shoe recommendation thing, but a good flat shoe. We kind of have three types of shoes. We've got squishy shoes that we probably shouldn't be wearing in the gym. It's not the end of the world, but we should probably look to get something without a squishy sole, so no running shoes. Then we've got flat shoes, like what we're holding here, and then we have heeled shoes. We talked about the heeled shoes. They're an A category. Not everybody needs them. Lots of people use it as a crutch. We should probably be able to lift reasonably well without them. But there's kind of a couple different caveats, right? So there's kind of two kinds of flat-footed shoe. You have a shoe that very much feels like a shoe. It's just got a compact sole that isn't too thick. So you're not squishing around, but it very much feels like you have a shoe on. You feel like you've got a big supportive shoe, whether that be the Reebok Power shoe, whether that be Sabo deadlift shoes, whether that be a pair of boxing shoes. All of these feel like you have a relatively supportive shoe around your foot. The way your foot interacts with the floor is very much as if you had a shoe on. It's just a shoe that's designed to not get in the way of your lifting in the same way that a squishy one would. So we kind of have those various options of things that very much feel like shoes, but they're designed not to mess with your lifting. Or they might not even be designed to do it. They might just not mess with your lifting with something like a Chuck Taylor. Then the other kind of shoe is something that's meant to not feel like you have a shoe on, something that is supposed to make it feel more like you're interacting with the floor as if you had no shoes, whether that be barefoots, whether that be Vivo barefoots, whether that be deadlift slippers. So kind of people have to pick their preference between the two kinds of shoes, whether it's a more shoe feeling or a more barefoot feeling shoe. The other consideration aside from that most often needs to be considered is if you're someone who lifts with a lot of lateral pressure, you might need to have a high top or something with a big built-up lateral wall, or you'll roll over the outer edge of the shoe. Lots of guys who pull sumo struggle with their deadlift slippers because they roll over the lateral edge, so they need something that's like a high top or something that's got a barrier on the lateral edge, like the red Sabos. But let's say a good flat shoe that doesn't squish. This is pretty essential. I guess I would put it up here way in the S category. Having some kind of good flat shoe, pretty vital. Doesn't really matter as much which one it is. It's largely preference. The chance that the differences in the shoes manifests as any different amount of weight on the bar, very low. So don't stress about it too much. I don't want to encourage like consumer culture too much, and like give people anxiety about, oh, am I buying the right shoe? Usually it's going to come down to a couple of things. It's just going to come down to like, okay, well, I like how this one feels. So maybe borrow your friends. If you like how it feels, it's probably the move. Whether you like that more like supportive shoe feeling or whether you like that more barefoot feeling. But past that, honestly, a lot of what determines what shoe people stick with is just what they like, how it looks. Small differences in preferences and feel is valid. I mean, if you've got the money, you can kind of experiment with that, but it's not going to meaningfully impact how much weight is on the bar. It's probably not worth stressing about. So it's like if you kind of have a shoe that fits your category and you like how it looks, it's probably the shoe for you. Coming up on the last couple here, wrist wraps. I'd say wrist issues are common enough. They're not always necessarily because someone is doing something wrong. I would probably put these kind of near the elbow sleeves. Not a necessity by any means, but a pretty solid nicety that I think most people should get eventually or could get eventually. Next one we're looking at is some kind of weighted dip or weighted pull-up belt. Just opens up some good options. As far as exercises, does it quite well. And I would say that they're exercises that most people would benefit from. Whereas like the two board, I wouldn't say most people would benefit from it. Some. Fat grips, some. Whereas this serves a purpose, it serves it really well, and it's a purpose that is fairly common. So we're going to put that in A tier. The next one we're looking at, knee wraps. For general strength training purposes, I mean, if you're prepping for a powerlifting meet, knee wraps, yeah, you want to be good at them. Being good with them is going to let you get more weight out of them and lift as much weight as you possibly can by kind of exploiting the wrap. Same thing with strongman. We're generally allowed to use a knee wrap. If it's something where a knee wrap might help, you should get them. You should get good with them. You should benefit from them. But for general strength training, I think that if you need knee wraps to squat without pain, there's probably an underlying issue that you should be addressing. I don't feel very comfortable using knee wraps as a workaround for knee pain. I think that's a little bit too extreme. People used to use them the same way they use knee sleeves, right? To just keep the knee warm. But we have knee sleeves now. It's a lot quicker. I don't know. I think that for general reasons, I don't think that most people really need these in their gym bag, although some people, just based on their demands of their sport, probably are going to get them. And then this one's just going to be like lacrosse ball foam roller. I'm going to put these kind of bottom of B, maybe. I don't know. I think that, again, they're a workaround. That's perfectly valid to work around something at times, but I would pick my beloved warming balm any day to keep my knees warm over rolling, although I don't think it's a waste of time. I feel like putting it kind of mid-pack B tier is pretty fair. That's all the items I had to place. If you guys liked the video, please remember to like it. Also, all of you motherfuckers that put squat plug, Jesus Christ, the lifting community, we got some of the worst jokes around, and then we beat them to death. I feel like the old squat plug thing has become the new version of creatine isn't natty, am I right, guys? Trent Hart, I'm gonna comment this on every video, not to give you guys a hard time. I appreciate you guys commenting on my stuff in general, but god damn is the squat plug thing played out. Please.